Nissan, Honda, Nissan going after Honda. Is this a pragmatic deal, Carlos, or a desperate roll of the dice?
No, in my opinion, it's a desperate move. It's not a pragmatic deal because, frankly, the synergies between the two companies are difficult to find. There is practically no complementarity between the two companies. They are on the same markets. They have the same products. The brands are very, very similar. So in a certain way, from one side, Nissan, it's a desperate move to try to find the future. And from the other side, Honda, which, if I understand well, they were not very excited about this move. But, you know, you have to count with Métis in Japan. That means the Métis had a big say into it. So at the end of the day, they're trying to figure out something that could marry the short-term problems of Nissan and the long-term vision of Honda.
Do you think Nissan is being do you think Honda is being pushed into this deal by the economy ministry? There's politics pushing this deal, Carlos, rather than the value of the deal?
Without any doubt for me. That means having lived in Japan for so many years, I understand how influent can the Métis be. And I can tell you that from all the data that I received about the performance of Nissan, which has been miserable for the last, at least for the last 2 to 3 years, they have cash problem, they have investment problems, they're being really hammered in the United States. They got practically out of Europe. They're being challenged in China, and there is no plan in front of it. So I can tell you that there is panic mode inside Nissan.
Well, if they're in panic mode, it then pushes the idea that the economy ministry, as you say, are in a do whatever it takes moment for Nissan?
Yeah, well, there is, in my opinion, there is no industrial logic to it. But as you know, there is a moment where you have to choose between performance and control. Obviously, if you can have both, it's the better. But there are moments where you have to choose. And without any doubt, with the Métis and everything I know from it, they prefer control on performance. So they pushed Honda into the deal without any doubt.
Well, with that in mind then, Carlos, what kind of backstops? I mean, you've dealt with the Japanese, you've dealt with Nissan, you understand the metrics to get these organizations together. Is the government going to have to deliver backstops to Honda to make this deal work?
No, I think they in a certain way, tried to push Honda onto this deal. Obviously, Honda must have some kind of benefit out of it. If not on the short term, at least on the mid and the long term. But that will be closely monitored to make sure that the impact on the Japanese society is not going to be too big. Because, you know, when you have two companies of this size and practically in the same market with practically the same strengths and the same weaknesses, there are going to be a lot of costs to be taken out, and there are going to be a lot of duplication to be taken out. So this is going to be closely monitored by the Métis.
You doubt that the synergies are there, though?
Well, I can tell you that it's on the short term, I don't see too much synergy. Obviously, you go to the classical one, which is purchasing together to try to leverage a better scale. But this is something that Nissan has done with Renault successfully in the past, except that at this moment, it's really concentrated in Japan. It's three Japanese companies which have very similar products. The image of the brand are not very different from one to the other. I'm including Mitsubishi into it. So it's going to be very tough. But on the long term, they can save on future investment by doing the investment one time in technology, doing it one time and sharing it with three companies.
Let's just press a little bit more on this. It's going to be tough, as you say, to get the synergies. It's driven by the Ministry of Economy. So there's a political dynamic to this. Is this Japan creating, putting two companies together to really try and stand up to the competition from China? Is that part of the narrative here, Carlos?
Without any doubt. It makes a lot of logic today. The Chinese automaker are on the winning side. They became, as you know, the largest exporter of cars. They are the largest maker of EV. They are being successful in a lot of new technology. They're doing fine cars. So in a certain way, yes, it's a defensive mood. It's a defensive mode that's going to be trying to shore up the Japanese industry and avoiding a cataclysm, first a social cataclysm in Japan, and particularly to try to reinforce these companies on the foreign markets.
Foxconn have put on pause their interest in participating in this deal, Carlos. They had a meeting with Renault. It obviously didn't go according to what they wanted. Is there only a Japan solution for this? Is there only a Japanese savior for Nissan, in your view?
I don't see him for the moment. Obviously, in the team existing today at Nissan, usually you can measure the team by the results they get. You know, that's the only way you know if somebody is capable of doing something. Frankly, when you look at the last 5 years, the results are not a good testimony of the strengths of the team. Will they be a savior? I don't know. I know how tough it's going to be, because you need to understand that Honda is an engineering organization. It's very strong in engineering. And Nissan is very proud of its own engineering. So the battles here to try to decide what technology is going to be adopted by the new company, or by, if it's a merger, or by the new alliance, I can tell you it's going to be very tough. I've been dealing with this for many years. I remember when we took control of Mitsubishi, Mitsubishi was not afraid of the collaboration with Renault. They were afraid of the collaboration of Nissan, because they know how tough it's going to be when engineers meet together. And there is this pride of my solution is the best solution, which always is an obstacle to develop serious synergy for the future.
Well, of course, you're going to have cultural issues when it comes, even if they're two Japanese firms. I think the point I was trying to get to, Carlos, was, do you see the only solution being a Japanese to Japanese merger or joint venture? Do you see any possibility of an overseas company like Foxconn being allowed into this house?
Well, the approach of Foxconn, when I heard about it, was very interesting, because it is something innovative. It is something that would have put Nissan in a completely different path. But the fact that you're telling me now that they are posing on it, they are very realistic people. They know they cannot do it against the will of the government of Japan, and particularly of the Métis. And now you need to know also that in Renault, the French state has a big say, because they are a very influential shareholder in Renault. And I'm sure that the decision of pause is coming from the fact that they know the Métis is not very favorable, and probably the French government doesn't want to upset the Japanese. I've been witness of how much the French government is bending backward to please the Japanese in the past, unfortunately.
Well, look, I know that there's ongoing issues between yourself, the Japanese, and the French, etc. But you have a ringside seat at many of those meetings. Is this, briefly before we talk about the global auto industry, Carlos, is this Renault's moment to exit? Do you think that that's what they hope for, or do you think they really do want an equity participation?
Oh, no. I mean, this alliance has been, since 2020. It's not a surprise. I told you that the alliance is a zombie. It's an appearance of an alliance. There is an appearance of a collaboration, but there was practically no collaboration at all. I think what Renault, after having the benediction, the blessing of the French government, is trying to maximize its asset inside Nissan. They're trying to get the most money out of their share. But they will, in my opinion, they will sell to Honda without any doubt.
Carlos, let's just broaden the conversation a little bit. You've lived and breathed this industry. You've seen the evolution of the Chinese electric vehicle market, the strength of the auto industry in China become. Are you surprised about how strong they've become so quickly?
No, not at all. You know, frankly, I've seen the signs of it when we entered China, when I was heading Nissan, and we entered China in 2003, and we started building our plants and organizing the engineering. In a very short period of time, I would say 7 or 8 years after we built the plants in China, the Chinese plants were at the top of the ranking from all our plants. I mean, we were comparing the productivity, the quality, the time to market of the Chinese plant compared to the Japanese plant, or to the US plants or the European plants. And the Chinese came to #1. It's a very disciplined workforce. They are very, very eager to compete into this industry. So I think this industry in the next 20 years is going to have to deal with the Chinese talent and the Chinese know-how.
Well, Carlos, you were known as Davos man, I think. You were the voice of free trade every January. The world is bracing for a next round of trade disruption from Donald Trump. Every CEO of an auto company out there probably has their own personal thoughts, but they probably can't really express them. You can. You're free now. As the auto CEOs line up, what can they not say? What do you think they're thinking, but they can't say?
Look, if you, that means this is an industry which is by definition a global industry. You can't survive as an automaker if you are restricted from accessing any market in the world. Size matters, investments are huge, economy of scale are extremely important. So this industry is living on globalism and globalization. So I think it's very bad news for all the automakers to know that there are going to be tariffs and there are going to be obstacles for them to be present in all the market. This will translate into a lot of them having problems and certainly a higher price for car in all the markets.
Do you think you'll see a major auto failure in 2025, Carlos?
Well, you know, there is no auto failure. There are, in a certain way, companies that are so weak that somebody else comes and buy them. When you look at the market capitalization of Nissan today, it's really very small. And I can understand that a company like Foxconn, headed by very serious and realistic management, is going to say, you know what, instead of us investing to do our own electric car, let's buy a car company. They're not going to be the only one to try to do that. Instead of building something from scratch, you can take control at a relatively cheap price of an existing car manufacturer, get rid of everything you don't need, and really concentrate on what's important for you for the future. I'm expecting a lot of moves like this in the future, particularly for the weaklings of the car industry.